Chapter 34 of Dead by Daylight has been announced, and it's called Dune Course. In this chapter, we are getting a new survivor, Taurie Cain, and a new killer called the Houndmaster. There isn't going to be a map coming out with this chapter, so let's dive into the new perks and killer ability. And just a quick reminder, these are subjected to change once the chapter goes live. Starting off with Taurie, her perks are Clean Break, Invocation, Treacherous Crows, and Shoulder the Burden. Clean Break is like a new take on Steve's perk Second Wind. After healing another survivor, and while a survivor attempts to heal you, activate the ability button and you become broken for 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, you are fully healed and Clean Break deactivates. Like I said, this is basically a new take on Second Wind. Instead of being unhooked to trigger the effect, you can trigger it yourself when another survivor is trying to heal you. I think this can be really good for resets. Like if you've got a couple survivors trying to heal before the killer finds them, this will make it much more successful because after ensuring one player has been fully healed, you can trigger Clean Break and scatter, making it less likely that the killer will find everyone when trying to heal. I do like this is a pretty straightforward perk. It gives a good benefit with a decent amount of risk. I just hope that they adjust the timer because like every other time self-heal mechanic, it happens substantially faster. Second Wind, it only takes 20 seconds to heal. The syringe add-on for medkits only takes 16 seconds. This means that Clean Break takes at least 3 times as long as any other comparable mechanic, which is a really long time. I don't think it needs to be brought down to 20 seconds like Second Wind, but I do think 30 seconds would be like a happy medium. Invocation Treacherous Crows is also similar to Sable's Invocation perk. You go down to the basement, you do the circle thing for 60 seconds, and when you're finished, you're broken for the rest of the match. The benefit of this perk is that the killer's aura is revealed for 2 seconds every time they disturb a crow and a survivor is within their terror radius, and all survivors are going to be able to see the killer's aura. I think this Invocation perk suffers the same problem Sable's did when it was in PTB, and that it's just not worth the trade-off. Because don't get me wrong, it sounds really great in theory, just like Sable's did. In theory, 2 seconds should be enough to basically know where the killer is at all times because crows are everywhere. But having played this in the PTB, I consistently got little to no value out of this perk. I almost never saw the killer's aura, and whether that was just because the 2 seconds was too quick and I was facing the opposite direction to see them, or all the crows they were disturbing just happened to be when there were no survivors in their terror radius, this perk just didn't pop off. Honestly, I think it should just be whenever the killer disturbs a crow. I think keeping 2 seconds is fine, but if I'm gonna be broken the whole match, I feel like I should be seeing the killer much more than what I was in the PTB. And then, in case anyone's wondering, you can actually use both invocations in the same match. You'll just have to sit in the basement for 120 seconds because you can only do one invocation at a time. Finally, we have Shoulder the Burden. I think this is probably one of the best perks I've seen for DBD survivors in a minute. Once per trial, and if you're not on death hook, you can give another survivor one of your hook staves. So say you're trying to get to somebody before they second stage, you don't make it, you can use this ability to put them back on first hook or even no hooks if you're feeling generous. The trade-off is you're going to be exposed for 20 seconds and obviously you lose a hook stave. This is a great perk for altruistic survivors. If you're a confident looper and a swift, you can help your less adept teammates out. This could help someone get out if it's an endgame hook. I think there's a ton of benefits to this perk and you can't really ask for a better trade-off. If you're a strong looper, the killer gets 20 seconds to only have to hit you once and you're automatically second stage. I would be honestly so shocked if people have problems with this perk. I think Taurie got some really decent perks. I would be surprised if Shoulder the Burden doesn't become a favorite of these 3, but maybe I'm just overestimating the Altruism of Dead by Daylight players. And then on to the Houndmaster. So the Houndmaster's ability revolves around her dog, who is canonically named Snug. She does have a special ability that allows you to pet the dog when you're playing as the Houndmaster. I think that's adorable and wholesome. In fact, there are a couple wholesome details around Snug. Survivors have the ability to break his grip, and you don't actually hit the dog. Like, the animation is not a hit. The animation is that you shoo him away. And I think this is hilarious because, like, survivors straight up kick Victor like it's nothing, and he looks like a little baby. We can't hit the dog, but we can kick the little baby. But the Houndmaster's 2 abilities are Chase and Redirect Chase. Chase basically sends Snug off in a direction you aim for. If he comes across a survivor, he will grab them and pull them back. If a survivor is in Snug's terror radius, they are revealed through Killer Instinct. The second ability allows you to take over Snug and change his direction, and in order for Snug to grab a survivor, it has to be a direct hit like the Artist in her crows or Deathslinger in his rifle. Similarly to Wesker, if Snug grabs a survivor by the exit gate, the entity does block the exit for 5 seconds and the survivor is shown in red. Survivors can break Snug's grip either by having other survivors shoo him away, or you can actually use a pallet to stun him. And then the Houndmaster's perks are All Shaking Thunder, No Quarter, and Scourge Hook Jagged Compass. All Shaking Thunder is basically balanced landing for killers. After you fall from a great height, this perk is active for 16 seconds. Your lunge attacks have a 75% increased range, and I don't think think this is a bad perk at all. My only complaint is that the timing feels really long. I'm not sure if the developers are intending this to be activated outside of chase, but if this is meant to be like a direct counter to balance landing, they gave it way too much additional time. For reference, balance landing is only active for 3 seconds, so this perk lasts more than 5 times that amount, and killers generally have the advantage when attacking survivors from a great height anyways. 16 seconds just feels excessive in this context. No Quarter also feels heavily inspired by other perks. It's basically Merciless Storm, but for self-healing. When a survivor healing themselves reaches 75% progress, they are faced with a continuous stream of skill checks. If they fail a skill check, they are broken for 30 seconds. I didn't get to test this, but I assume this will not trigger when mending, so we don't have to worry about this being crazy on Legion since the game generally classifies mending and healing as 2 separate actions. I just want to know who at Behavior was hurt by Survivor's healing. Survivor's already got a massive healing nerf back in March of 2023, but in all seriousness, I don't think this is a bad perk. I do think it would have been better served before Circle of Healing got its massive nerf, because now you're maybe getting value once per survivor per match, assuming either they bring a medkit or find one in game. Self-care is just so rarely brought into matches, it would be kind of silly to try to have a direct counter to that. But then finally, we have another Scourge Hook Jagged Compass. Whenever a survivor is unhooked from a non-Scourge hook, it then becomes a Scourge hook. When you have a survivor on a Scourge hook, you see the generator with the most progress for 10 seconds. This is probably a perk that is going to be used in Scourge hook combos. By itself, the value is okay. Information on generators is always helpful for killers to find survivors and delay their objective, but on its own, I just think there are better Scourge hooks. Give yourself the ability to basically place pain res on a hook where survivors are most active, really ups the ante for killers. So I'm not saying that Jagged Compass is bad by any means, but it's definitely better at getting other perks more value than getting value on its own. I just want to say though, the Houndmaster was so much fun to go up against in the PTB, which is really surprising because her ability and perks feel like copies of other killers' abilities and other existing perks. I've heard other players compare her to Deathslinger Cenobite, who I personally hate with a passion. Her aim reminds me of the artist, but something about the implementation of this was just so fun. I don't know if it's just because she's got a really cool design, or I'm blinded by a doggo and Dead by Daylight, but I am genuinely excited for this killer. I think her ability is pretty straightforward, which is refreshing given the more complex kits we've been getting with the last few chapters, and the same can be said about her perks. At least 2 of the 3 feel heavily inspired by existing mechanics. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, I think it's a good direction for the developers to take, and even though I honestly didn't realize this chapter was coming out, I am really excited to see it at the end of November. What do you guys think? Are you going to become a Houndmaster main? What perks are you most excited to use? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, don't forget to like and subscribe so I can bring you more Dead by Daylight content.